For the past 10 years, I've done 400 some episodes of this show, and with this, let's call it a movie, I don't even know where to fucking start. Sure, we've sat through plenty of This Exists movies, from Fun in Balloon Land, to Miss Velma's Christmas, to Bat Pussy, to The Magic Christmas Tree. So trust me when I say that this movie will break you. And unlike a lot of stores on the day after Christmas, there will be no refunds. Consider yourself a Gold Star Snob fan if you make it through this shit. So what makes Santa's Christmas elf named Calvin even harder to sit through than those movies? Well, normally I could just explain some things myself, but in this case, how about I just show you a clip of the movie?
Merry Christmas, everyone! Thanks for your hard work!
Merry Christmas, Santa!
It's a movie of still shots. It's an entire film made up entirely of still shots. Say what you will about Fun in Balloon Land or Miss Velma, but they moved. Sometimes. Yes, it has gotten to the point on this show where we can say, hey, at least those other movies had motion. Sure, it'd be one thing if this were a 5 or 10 minute short. It's 70 minutes long. Krampus made this film. If you want to find out more about the movie, you'll have to look beyond IMDb, because at the time of this review, the movie doesn't even have an IMDb page, even though this poster suggests that it did show theatrically. I could make a joke about how taking your kids to this movie is poor parenting, but I genuinely want to know, who the fuck saw this movie in a theater? Even the title is off-putting. Santa's Christmas elf named Calvin. Unlike Santa's non-Christmas elf. And adding the named Calvin bit is so oddly specific. Why stop there? Why not call it Santa's Christmas elf named Calvin, who isn't a huge fan of mushrooms, but doesn't mind cream of mushroom soup, maybe because the mushroom pieces are so small, and the broth has a nice taste that covers the slimy and squishy texture of plain mushrooms. I do know more about the movie, such as who wrote it, who produced it, and who directed it, but we'll get to that at about the halfway point in the film, because trust me, by then, you're gonna need a fucking break! Let's get this shit over with. Pfft, that's not a real location. So it's Christmas Eve, and this is a movie made for that relative who will not stop showing you his photo albums.
7 of the elves worked super fast, making the last of the shiny new toys. But the 8th little elf, named Calvin, worked slowly.
Well, if you didn't procrastinate, there wouldn't be a problem. Yes, give the kids the Annabelle doll. Why not? The movie's already made by demons. All of the other elves are working at a swift pace, except Calvin, who works super slow, almost as if he's on pause.
Santa examined closely his long Christmas list while relaxing in his favorite chair. He ate a cookie and drank some milk.
You're a terrible boss! Maybe if you were a good motivator, Calvin wouldn't suck at making toys! Look at this. Calvin sucks so bad, he ripped the head off of the Grimace.
He was forgetful, careless, and slow. His work was truly a sight.
Calvin seems happy about it. Keep making angry kitty toilets, Calvin.
Every year more children. I'll only have enough toys for the really good boys and girls.
Then maybe you should slip condoms under the parents' pillows. Santa realizes he's late, then beats Calvin mercilessly for unplugging his alarm clock. Santa sucks at Christmas as much as Calvin.
He looked funny, hurrying toward the closet, for Santa wore only one boot.
We're only 5 minutes in. There's 65 minutes of this movie left. Unfortunately, the toys Calvin made are filled with Quaaludes. Heilig is pissed because Calvin raided his stash.
My shop makes beautiful toys. Everyone but you, that is. I've told you all year. You have to pay attention.
Thanks, Santa's Nazi elf named Heilig. There's something about all of Calvin's toys being useless, but I'm too busy being possessed by this fucking doll. Calvin must be punished.
Do you understand, Calvin? You're fired!
I think this firing is official. He got his slip from a fortune cookie. The other elves are very happy as they decapitate Calvin so they can place his head on top of the Christmas tree. This is where Santa gives him 20 lashings. Whoa! Ho, 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 ho! Calvin is then put on reindeer shit duty.
They loved all of the elves dearly, but Calvin was their favorite one.
Are you sure? Are you sure he's the favorite? They look like they want to murder him. Oh, and all the naughty kids are getting a dead cat this year.
I hope everything's ready,
said Santa, his dick-sucking lips all puckered up. As the elves try fitting the bag in the sleigh, Calvin watches close by, plotting his revenge, murdering the elves in their sleep and placing their lifeless wooden bodies under trees all around the world if they don't kill themselves first.
The elves straightened the workbenches, putting their tools away. They looked forward to a long night's sleep and turkey on Christmas Day.
The elves only sleep 8 hours a year, and they only have one turkey to share between all of them, and that's only if Santa is too full to eat it himself. It was then that Calvin was found dead in a closet after watching the VHS tape from The Ring. Oh, and he accidentally takes off in the sleigh. This movie is already 60 minutes longer than it should be. I sure hope Calvin's voice doesn't make it feel longer.
Stop! Stop! I didn't want you to go! I don't know how to drive this sleigh!
After committing grand theft sleigh, Calvin crashes into a mountain, and Christmas was never spoken of again. They say at night you can still see Calvin's head in the constellations. That is, if you drink 20 eggnogs first. Some of the elves look happy to no longer be slave laborers.
Your sleigh has disappeared.
Disappeared? Look at the time. We must find it.
Oh, dear me!
Only 17 minutes in. 53 minutes of the film remain.
I can't believe that for the first time in the history of Santa Claus, the children of the world are going to be disappointed.
Was the Great Depression that long ago? I sure hope Calvin makes it back, or dies.
Now let me see. I should just think a little bit. Over there is Polaris, the North Star. Under the North Star is the North Pole.
Why does he look like Trump? I think those are supposed to be logs behind the images, but it looks like this movie of still shots is having a frozen tracking problem. Anyway, Santa's trapped in an anus. Santa has his sleigh back, and Calvin is hiding in the back of it. Sure glad that was wrapped up. Boy, was that intense. Too bad we're not even halfway through!
Calvin slipped deeper within the bag, fearful of being found.
Then stop using your apparition powers to shine your head through the fucking bag. Santa has work to do.
Santa entered the second house through a window. It had no fireplace, and someone had locked the door.
Santa was then shot. As Santa drops off presents in an igloo, he was then raptured but immediately sent back when Jesus remembered Santa's sleigh. I think you're being a little random, Santa. None of these houses appear to be next to each other.
He visited a home called an orphanage. leaving 22 pairs of skates.
Yes, that's nice, but they asked you for parents.
If your Christmas wish is for this movie to get creepier,
Then you're a questionable person.
also your wish has come true.
After hundreds of visits, Santa reached his last stop. Upstairs in her bedroom, Kim, a little girl, slept.
Who took these pictures? I'm getting so skeeved out by this movie that I'm fairly certain it was filmed by the Sea King.
Calvin is left behind because he's even shitty at hiding in a sleigh. So he does what any elf would do and watches the little girl as she sleeps.
Merry Christmas, everyone! Merry Christmas, and to all a good night.
You'd think that would be the end. It's not.
Calvin notices that the presents look like the skyline of hell, and the elves have all given up on life.
Now I'm really going to go to bed.
So am I.
Fantastic. The movie is even boring inanimate objects.
Anyway, back to the brood. Kim then finds Calvin and notices instantly that her mom looks more like a doll than Calvin does. Kim looks like she's auditioning for Mommy Dearest, and Joan is about to take her presents away. The rest of the kids look like a before photo in an orthodontist's office. Her asshole siblings make fun of her for getting an elf for Christmas, like they have room to talk. This girl got the dead cat.
I'm under the impression that this movie could cut about half of its dialogue.
Kim then smiled warmly and tickled his nose. She wanted to be his friend.
I'm gonna be your friend.
Thanks, I got that from the narration. This movie is so fucking long!
You're in the United States, and now you belong to me. You're my own little real doll, and we're gonna have lots of fun.
Uh-oh, I know where this is going.
We'll both have fundamental friend dependability.
Meanwhile, the other elves still don't know that Calvin is gone because everyone hates Calvin. Calvin's busy boring someone else.
Kim thought it was an exciting story.
Yes, that's a look that says, so, no Polly Pocket this year either, huh? Not even an easy bake oven? Truly, Calvin has hit rock bottom.
If I ever get another chance, I'm going to be the best worker Santa Claus has.
Thank you, Martin from The Simpsons. I wish I could shove this movie's head in a toilet.
If you think Satan's dolly in the background looks like the stuff of Overlook Hotel nightmares, this next shot shows that even a coloring book can be haunted by a vengeful dead girl. Santa's Christmas elf named Calvin. It should be boring enough to put you to sleep, but sleep is where the movie will fucking murder you. This is all just how the mother sees the world. It's all the uppers she's on. Ain't nothing like watching a movie that constantly looks like it's buffering and like it's fucking possessed. She then got Calvin drunk where he confessed to having a fetish for bears, and boy does she have a friend to introduce him to.
I'm fairly certain the other kids have gotten into Mommy's medication.
Where's Kim?
She's still in her room with that funny-looking doll.
She told me he was alive and they're having a tea party.
That's silly. Why'd you let her do that?
Still better than the child acting from Let There Be Light.
The elves finally figure out that Calvin is missing, but it's 34 years later, so he's long since dead.
He's not really that bad of a boy. He must be around someplace. You must keep looking.
You're making them work on their one day off? We really should liberate the North Pole.
Okay, you need a break? 'Cause I sure as fuck do. We'll take a little bit of a breather, and when we come back, we'll talk about who made this fucking thing. While IMDb may not recognize this film as existing, unlike a movie like Bat Pussy, whose production team is a complete and utter mystery, thanks to a VHS release, which, wow, who owns that, and an opening credit sequence, we at least know who made this movie. The only VHS cover I've seen where the pictures on the back of the box are scenes in action.
As you can see, it comes from titles that were put in years after the productions. The film was written by children's book author Billie Jean Oxendine. Again, no thanks to IMDb. For all I know, they really did get a hamburger to design this shoot. The narration was supplied by Dorothy Brown Green. Pick a fucking color! But most importantly, the film was produced by whatever change he had in his wallet and directed by Barry Mahon, a sexploitation director who is best known for his grindhouse children's films Thumbelina and Jack and the Beanstalk, which could be seen spliced into the legendary bad film Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny, for which Dorothy Brown Green is also credited as narrator. And with Barry's involvement in the film, suddenly its existence makes a hell of a lot more sense, but it doesn't make it any easier to sit through. As we continue on, the elves are still looking for Calvin.
The 7 elves inspected the barn, searching it through and through. They looked in the feed bin.
Figures this movie has a cum bucket in it. Also, the bag has been fired as well. They figure out that Calvin was not only in the bag, but accidentally delivered, which appears to make them very happy that they don't have to deal with Calvin's shit.
Poor little Calvin. He must be miserable.
Why? Is he watching a movie about himself? Calvin is busy having a staring contest. The loser's head fucking explodes. But Calvin misses home for some reason.
Oh, how he wished he was home again, eating ice cream made of snow.
I think you're romanticizing your previous home. No one liked you on the North Pole, and eating snow ice cream is not a good thing, especially since the elves probably pissed in it. Santa is so determined to get Calvin back that he'll enter the States lawfully.
Mr. President, I have a very special favor to ask of you. I must get a new visa to visit the United States.
Isn't this a little much for someone who flies to any country that he damn well pleases? Santa then dresses incognito as the toy from the Ninja Turtles figures that the elves were making. He better hurry too, because elf bullying?
The children first stared at Calvin, then began laughing and making fun. They'd never seen a doll so ugly.
Why am I watching AI but with elves? Oh, and is the doll ugly? Kids who look like a garden of weeds?
Quit that. Calvin's my doll and he's not ugly.
Kim then realized she was a fire starter and burned the bullies alive. Santa hides the deer in a coloring book as he goes around flashing people in Central Park and meeting all sorts of people.
He discovered some people to be unfriendly. After all, he was a strange-looking man.
Jane Fonda then kicked Santa in the balls. This movie is going off the still-framed rails.
He wondered if people questioned his raincoat when there wasn't a cloud in the sky.
No, because they know you're naked under there, and no explanation as to why Elsa Fraulein SS is also riding the bus. Santa goes door to door looking for Calvin, and also tell the neighbors that he's a pederast. Thanks, movie, I need a snack. Just remember, if the food isn't perfect, Kim is gonna teleport you into a fucking television set. And then the best part of the movie happens.
He was full, but miserable too.
You shouldn't eat so much, Calvin.
Motion. Fucking motion. Even if it was just a tracking problem. Santa will get back to searching for Calvin in a minute. He's not done masturbating in the park yet. This works out because he happens to see Calvin getting bullied. Now both Calvin and Kim have severed heads. You'd think Santa could just take Calvin away. He doesn't.
Kim held her doll tightly and in the sand wrote Calvin's name.
That's cat litter. Seeing Santa excites Calvin so much that his hat is on its way to being fully erect. Aren't there cops in this town?
Hello, Kim. Is that your Christmas present?
Yes, sir. His name is Calvin.
Maybe go question the old man in the sunglasses and an overcoat. Will someone please release the Atari so these kids can stop spending their days bullying a girl and her elf? The bullies are then distracted when they start groping each other. Kim is lured in by a member of the Manson family, leaving Calvin to be tortured by two bullies. Santa is still jerking off. And I'm fairly certain that Calvin is gonna get raped.
The boys took Calvin to a large field.
Where is this movie going?
Oh, no! They're not going to do that to me! They can't put me on that airplane! I'm too big!
Clearly, attaching Calvin to a remote control airplane is obviously where this movie's going, which leads to the big action scene.
The plane tilted. Right, left, then right. Suddenly it began turning over. Calvin was flying upside down.
Better special effects than Justice League. And here's another line I wouldn't expect to hear in a Christmas kids movie.
Gee, I wish my head felt better! All the blood is rushing to my head!
Good, that'll kill you quicker than the movie will. But then you'd miss this riveting action.
Suddenly the plane went into a nosedive. Its target, the tree on the ground. He expected the worst, preparing to crash, when upward he suddenly zoomed.
Guess I'm gonna have to take your word on that. This scene is highly unrealistic. I've seen what this hair looks like under heavy wind. As long as this whole movie feels, this plane sequence is the most punishing part of it. It goes on for around 10 minutes, which could be to stretch the movie to over an hour long, which would be fine, except this movie has no business being over an hour long. We can't cut any of this award-winning material. Get that damn fly away from the microphone! 36 hours later, the scene finally ends. Not that it matters, because Santa is still going door to door confessing to what he did at the church potluck. Santa can deliver presents to every house in the fucking world on a single night, but he can't snatch Calvin away from these fucking bullies. Oh, but he can steal a garbage truck? Seriously!
As Santa drove the truck down the street, he planned what next he would do.
Guess he stole that truck to dispose of the dead hookers, or future dead bullies.
Santa saw the boys had found their plane. He looked at each one closely, memorizing each one's name.
Christmas Evil thinks this movie is too creepy. And why do people keep trusting him?
Hopefully, Santa approached the house and loudly knocked on the door.
We're collecting toys for next year.
So, people just let anyone in their house in the 70s.
I'm going to tell you this, and you're the first little child in the world ever to see me. But I'm Santa Claus.
Where's the cop? She decides on whether or not to keep Calvin or to let him go, ignoring that he does talk, and he did say that he wants to go home. And with her resting bitch face, she let him go. The bullies realize the elf is alive, which why didn't they notice that before? So much shit in this movie could be resolved if it moved! Then the mom doubled her prescription. Now there may be only a few minutes left, but never fear, there's still padding.
At the airport, Calvin pretended to be a doll. The customs agent wondered what he should do. There was something strange about that toy.
Work visas, customs agents, the title? Why is this movie so goddamn specific? And you already have a flying machine. Calvin returns home and remembers why he hated it in the first place.
Starting his special list for next year, Santa relaxed in his favorite chair. Certain boys needed to be watched more closely.
Exhibit A, Your Honor. Calvin could have spent an easy life in the States, but nah, going back in the anus seems way more appealing. But Kim will get a special present next year.
Calvin had received Santa's message and began making a special toy. He knew the gift would be perfect, and Kim would be delighted with joy.
Wow, looks so much different. Here, Kim, here's your former friend, stuffed. Everyone loses.
Now remember, be good little girls and boys. A Merry Christmas, everyone!
And thus ends the movie equivalent of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties.
It sort of makes sense that the movie was written by a children's book author because I can kind of see it working as a children's book. That is, if you take out Flasher Santa. But as a 70-minute movie made up of a box of photos found in Dean Corll's basement, it tries even the patience of people who have seen every movie featured on this show.
The only thing that could possibly save this movie would be this narration.
Santa is taking his elves around by rocket ship now. I think he picked this group up in the South Pole. They want to make toys for the children, too. This is modern travel.
And even then, I'm left with the feeling that the aunt from Sleepaway Camp is reading me a Christmas story straight from hell. Say what you will about the rest of the Christmas films we watched this year, at least they're not going to be filmed with a fucking Polaroid!
Look at you, Calvin. You got chalk all over your face.
Well, wipe it off!
Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/stonedgremlin productions. Follow us on Twitter at the Cinema Snob, or check out our homepage at thecinemasnob.com. And you guessed correctly, I am a little drunk.